She looked like she belonged in Coach-oversized hoodie, worn-out sneakers, and messy curls. But when 19-year-old Maya Winslow scanned her boarding pass for seat 1A, the flight attendant didn't just block her path, she laughed in her face. "Honey, I think you're lost. The cleaning crew boards after the passengers." They mocked her clothes, threatened her with federal prison, and humiliated her before a packed cabin. They thought she was nobody. They didn't know that the name Winslow on her passport was the same name on the ownership deed of the entire airline. And they certainly didn't expect the captain to walk out, turn pale, and salute her. The fluorescent lights of JFK International Airport hummed with the chaotic energy of a Monday morning. It was the kind of noise that usually gave Maya a headache, but today she was too focused to care. She adjusted the strap of her battered canvas backpack, a vintage piece she'd picked up at a thrift store in Brooklyn, and pulled the hood of her charcoal sweatshirt further over her forehead. She checked her phone. 10:15 a.m. Boarding for Pan Atlantic Airways. Flight 409 to London Heathrow was about to begin. Maya wasn't dressed for the occasion. Not according to the unwritten rules of society, anyway. While the passengers lining up for the priority group were clad in bespoke Italian suits, cashmere shawls and polished leather loafers, Maya looked like she had just rolled out of a college dorm room, which, to be fair, she technically had. She was tired, she was grieving, and she just wanted to get home to her father. She approached the podium where the gate agent, a man named Greg, with a perfectly gelled comb-over, was chatting with a flight attendant. The flight attendant, whose silver name tag read Tiffany Baxter, was leaning against the counter with an air of bored superiority. She was immaculate crimson lipstick, applied with surgical precision, a uniform that looked tailored to the millimeter, and blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Maya stepped into the first-class/diamond status lane. Tiffany didn't even look up from her fingernails at first. When she finally sensed a presence, her eyes flicked to Maya's sneakers, up to her leggings, and finally rested on the hoodie. A small dismissive smirk curled the corner of her mouth. "Excuse me," Tiffany said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness that barely masked the venom underneath. "The economy line is starting over there by the Hudson News stand. Group 5 doesn't board for another 20 minutes. Maya didn't flinch. She was used to this. "I'm not in Group 5, she said, her voice soft but steady. She held out her phone, the QR code for her boarding pass glowing on the screen. "I'm in seat 1A. Tiffany laughed. It was a sharp, barking sound that drew the attention of the businessman standing behind Maya. "Sweetie, seat 1A is first class. A ticket costs $12,000. Did you use a screenshot of someone else's ticket? That's fraud, you know. I could call security right now." "It's my ticket," Maya said, her hand trembling slightly, not from fear, but from a rising hot anger she was trying desperately to suppress. "Please scan it." Greg, the gate agent, finally looked up, looking annoyed that his conversation had been interrupted. "Miss, if you're holding up the line, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. Mr. and Mrs. Halloway are waiting." Maya turned to see an older couple behind her. The woman, Mrs. Halloway, was clutching a Louis Vuitton bag, like a shield, and looking at Maya as if she were a bad smell. "Really?" Mrs. Halloway huffed. "The standards have dropped so low. Do they just let anyone wander into the priority lane now?" "Check the name," Maya said, pushing her phone closer to the scanner. "Maya Winslow." Tiffany rolled her eyes, snatching the scanner. "Fine. Let's get this over with so I can deny you officially." She aimed the laser at the phone, fully expecting the angry red beep of a rejection. Beep! The light turned green. The small screen on the podium flashed passenger, confirmed Winslow Maya. Seat 1A, status VIP. Tiffany froze. She blinked at the screen, then hit the refresh button. It still said green. She looked at the machine, then at Maya, then back at the machine. System glitch, Tiffany muttered, shaking her head. Has to be. We've been having software issues all week. It's not a glitch, Maya said, reaching for her passport. Do you want to check my ID? Tiffany ignored the passport. She looked at Greg. There is no way this child bought a first-class ticket. She probably hacked the app. Look at her. She can't afford a bottle of water in the terminal, let alone a transatlantic suite. I demand you let me board, Maya said, her voice hardening. You are delaying the flight. Tiffany stepped out from behind the podium, crossing her arms. She towered over Maya in her heels. Listen to me, you little brat. I don't know what scam you're running, but it ends here. I am the lead flight attendant on this bird. My job is to ensure the safety and comfort of our paying customers. You are not stepping foot on my plane until I verify this with the ground supervisor. Now step aside. I paid for this ticket. Maya lied. She hadn't paid for it. She didn't have to. But explaining that now would only make things more complicated. Security. Tiffany waved at a TSA officer, standing a few yards away. Maya felt her heart hammer against her ribs. She couldn't get arrested. She couldn't miss this flight. Her father's text message from that morning burned in her mind. Come home, Maya. We need to sign the papers today. It's time. Fine, Maya whispered. Verify it, but do it fast. Greg typed furiously on his keyboard, his brow furrowed. Tiffany, the system has her flagged as must ride. It's a corporate code. I can't override it. Tiffany snatched the mouse from him. Corporate code? Don't be stupid. It's probably a glitch in the loyalty program. She looked at Maya with pure disdain. Fine. You want to play games, get on the plane. But I'll be watching you. One wrong move, 1 foot out of line, and I will have the marshals drag you off in handcuffs at Heathrow. Do you understand me? Maya didn't answer. She snatched her phone back and walked past Tiffany down the jet bridge. Trash, she heard Mrs. Halloway whisper behind her. Absolute trash. The first-class cabin of the Boeing 777 was a sanctuary of cream leather walnut wood trim and soft ambient lighting. It smelled of expensive cologne and fresh orchids. There were only 8 suites each, fully enclosed with sliding privacy doors. Maya found seat 1A. It was the prime spot right at the front, offering the most privacy. She tossed her backpack into the overhead bin, ignoring the way it clashed with the sleek interior, and collapsed into the massive leather seat. She pulled her knees up to her chest, trying to make herself small. She just wanted to sleep. She wanted to put on her noise-cancelling headphones and forget that Tiffany Baxter existed. But peace was not on the menu. A few moments later, Tiffany stomped onto the plane, followed closely by the Halloways and a few other elite passengers. Tiffany began greeting them with an exaggerated syrupy charm that was nauseating to watch. Mrs. Halloway, so good to see you again. Mr. Halloway, let me take your coat. Champagne before takeoff. Of course. Then Tiffany turned and saw Maya. Her smile vanished instantly, replaced by a look of cold calculation. She walked over to Suite 1A. Feet down, Tiffany snapped. Maya looked up, startled. Excuse me. Feet down, Tiffany enunciated, pointing a manicured finger at Maya's sneakers resting on the edge of the ottoman. This is Italian leather. It costs more than your entire education. Put your feet on the floor. Maya dropped her feet. Sorry. And the hood. Tiffany continued, her voice rising so the other passengers could hear. Take it off. This is a premium cabin, not a subway station. We have a dress code. There is no dress code for paying passengers. Maya countered, her patience fraying. I read the terms of service. I make the rules in the air, Tiffany hissed, leaning in close. And I say you look like a security threat. You're making the other passengers nervous. Isn't that right, Mrs. Halloway? From across the aisle in seat 1F. Mrs. Halloway adjusted her pearls. She certainly is Tiffany. I'm clutching my purse tight. She looks like she's casing the joint. A man in seat 2A, a younger guy in a tech vest who had been watching the exchange, frowned. Hey, leave her alone. She's not doing anything. Tiffany whipped around. Sir, please don't interfere with crew duties. I am assessing a potential disruption. She turned back to Maya. I need to see your boarding pass again. I just showed it to you. Show it again. Now! Maya fumbled for her phone. Her hands were shaking harder now. She unlocked the screen and held it up. Tiffany snatched the phone out of her hand. Hey! Maya shouted, reaching for it. Don't touch me! Tiffany shrieked, jumping back as if she'd been burned. Did you see that? She just lunged at a flight crew member. That is a federal offense, assault on a crew member. The cabin went silent. The air grew heavy with tension. I didn't touch you, Maya said, her voice trembling. You took my phone. I am confiscating this device as evidence of your aggression, Tiffany said, clutching the phone to her chest. She looked triumphant. She finally had what she needed, a reason. And now I am going to have you removed. I will not have a violent, unstable hooligan in my first-class cabin. She pressed the call button for the cockpit. You can't do this, Maya said, tears pricking her eyes. My name is Maya Winslow. Please just check the manifest properly. I don't care if your name is Barack Obama, Tiffany spat. You are getting off this plane. The commotion had now attracted the attention of the entire front cabin. The tech guy in 2A, whose name was David, had quietly pulled out his phone. He wasn't filming openly, but the lens was peeking out from behind his menu card, capturing everything. Get up, Tiffany commanded. Get your bag and get out. No, Maya said, gripping the armrests. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm giving you a direct order, Tiffany yelled. Her face was flushing red. The carefully constructed mask of the professional flight attendant had completely slipped, revealing a bully who was drunk on a thimble of power. What seems to be the problem here? The voice was deep authoritative and laced with irritation. Walking from the galley was the first officer, a man named Mark, looking concerned. But behind him, stepping out of the cockpit, was the captain. Captain Robert Bob Anderson was a legend at Pan Atlantic. He had grey hair at his temples, 4 stripes on his shoulders, and 30 years of flying experience. He was a man who tolerated zero nonsense. He had come out because the shouting in the cabin was audible through the reinforced cockpit door. Tiffany's face instantly changed. She adopted a look of distress, putting a hand to her chest. Captain, thank God. This passenger. She pointed a shaking finger at Maya. She's been belligerent since the gate. She refused to follow instructions. She's dressed inappropriately, and she just physically assaulted me when I asked to see her ticket. I'm removing her. Captain Anderson frowned, his eyes scanning the scene. He looked at Maya, who was curled into the corner of her seat, looking terrified. He looked at Mrs. Halloway, who was nodding vigorously in agreement with Tiffany. She attacked you? Anderson asked, his voice skeptical. Yes. She tried to grab me. Tiffany lied effortlessly. She didn't touch her. David, from seat 2A, spoke up loudly. Captain, I have it on video. The flight attendant snatched the girl's phone and then screamed. The girl never touched her. Tiffany glared at David. Sir, put that phone away, or you'll be off this flight too. Captain Anderson held up a hand to silence Tiffany. He turned his gaze to Maya. He walked slowly toward seat 1A. He looked at the girl. He saw the hoodie. He saw the tears. Miss, the captain said, his voice firm but not unkind. I need to see your identification and your boarding pass. She has my phone, Maya said, pointing at Tiffany. Captain Anderson held out his hand to Tiffany. Give her the phone. But Captain, it's evidence. Give her the phone. Tiffany sulked, handing the phone to the captain. He handed it back to Maya. Your boarding pass, please. Maya opened the app. She handed the phone to the captain. He looked at the screen. Maya Winslow. He paused. He looked at the name again. Then he looked at Maya's face. He studied her features, the specific curve of her jaw, the eyes. He had seen those eyes before, in company newsletters, in newspapers, and years ago in a photograph on the desk of the man who signed his paychecks. The captain's eyes widened. He pulled a folded piece of paper, the flight manifest, from his breast pocket. He scanned the bottom of the list, where the VIP notes were usually printed in small text. There it was, a code he hadn't seen in 5 years. 01. Owner family. Priority absolute. Captain Anderson felt the blood drain from his face. He looked at Tiffany, who was standing there with a smug grin, waiting for him to drag the girl out. Tiffany, the captain said, his voice deadly quiet. Yes, Captain. Should I call the gate agents to escort her? No, Anderson said. He turned fully toward Tiffany, his posture stiffening. You just accused this passenger of assault. Yes, she. Be very careful what you say next. Anderson warned, his voice dropping an octave. Because you are speaking about Ms. Maya Winslow. I know her name is Winslow, Tiffany scoffed. So what? Probably some relation to a janitor. Tiffany, the captain barked, making everyone jump. Do you know who owns Pan Atlantic Airways? Do you know the name of the holding company that bought us out last year? Tiffany blinked. I don't follow politics. Winslow Private Equity, I think. Why? The captain gestured to Maya. This is Maya Winslow. She is the daughter of Reginald Winslow, the chairman. And if my memos are correct as of this morning, she is the majority shareholder of this airline. The silence that fell over the cabin was heavier than gravity. The silence in the first-class cabin was so profound, you could hear the ice settling in the pre-departure drinks. Tiffany Baxter stood frozen, her mouth slightly ajar, looking between Captain Anderson and the girl in the hoodie. Her brain was misfiring, trying to reconcile two completely opposing realities. On one hand, she saw a disheveled teenager in cheap sneakers. On the other, the captain of the airline was telling her this teenager owned the plane. That's not possible, Tiffany stammered, her voice losing its shrill edge and replaced by a breathless panic. She let out a nervous, high-pitched laugh. Captain, surely you're joking. It's a prank, right? The guys in scheduling put you up to this. Captain Anderson did not smile. His face was like a stone mask. He slowly rotated the iPad he was holding so the screen faced Tiffany. Does this look like a prank to you, Mrs. Baxter? Tiffany looked at the screen. It was the internal crew manifest, a level of access usually reserved only for pilots. At the top, in a red banner that indicated high priority, was the profile photo of the girl sitting in front of her. It was a professional headshot, Maya looking polished in a blazer, but the eyes were unmistakable. Next to the photo were the words, Maya Winslow, Director of Board, Status Owner. Tiffany felt her knees turn to water. She gripped the edge of seat 1B to steady herself. The blood rushed from her face so fast she looked like a ghost. I didn't know, Tiffany whispered. She didn't look like... She didn't look like what? Captain Anderson interrupted his voice, sharp. She didn't look like someone you had to treat with basic human decency. Is that pan-Atlantic policy now? We only serve people who wear Gucci. I was just trying to protect the cabin, Tiffany pleaded, looking around for support. She looked at Mrs. Halloway, begging with her eyes for backup. But Mrs. Halloway, the woman who had called Maya trash only moments ago, was now busy fascinated by the view out of the window. She had pulled her Louis Vuitton bag off the console and tucked it out of sight, shrinking into her seat. The Halloways were social climbers. They knew exactly when the wind had changed direction, and they were abandoning ship. Maya finally spoke. She hadn't moved. She hadn't gloated. She just looked tired. "Captain," Maya said softly. "Yes, Miss Winslow." The captain's demeanor changed instantly, from furious to respectful. He leaned in slightly, giving her his full attention. "We can have the gate agents remove this flight attendant immediately. We have a reserve crew member on standby. It will take 20 minutes, but—" "No," Maya said. Tiffany let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She's going to show mercy, Tiffany thought. Thank God. I can fix this. I'll be extra nice. We are already 10 minutes behind schedule. Maya continued, checking her watch, a battered Casio that probably cost $10. My father hated lateness. We fly as is. Are you sure? Captain Anderson asked gently. I can't have a crew member on board who has disrespected you. She won't disrespect me again, Maya said, her eyes finally locking onto Tiffany. The gaze was cold, analytical, and terrifyingly calm. It was the stare of a Winslow. Will you, Tiffany? Tiffany swallowed hard. No. No, Miss Winslow. Never. I am so sorry. I had no idea. Save it. Maya cut her off. She turned back to the captain. Captain Anderson, please prepare for takeoff. I need to get to London. I have a funeral to arrange. The captain nodded solemnly. My condolences, Miss Winslow. We'll get you there smooth and fast. He turned to Tiffany, his eyes hardening again. You are on thin ice. If Miss Winslow so much as rings her call button, and you aren't there in 3 seconds, you won't just be fired. I will personally ensure you never work in aviation again. Do you understand? Yes, Captain, Tiffany squeaked. Get to your jump seat. As the captain returned to the cockpit and the fasten seatbelt sign chimed, the atmosphere in the cabin shifted dramatically. The other passengers, the wealthy elite who had sneered at Maya, were now stealing terrified glances at her. David, the tech guy in 2A, leaned across the aisle. Hey, he whispered. I'm sorry about your dad. Maya looked at him, surprised by the genuine kindness. Thank you, she whispered back. And hey, he added, grinning and holding up his phone. I still have the video, just in case you need it for the boardroom meeting. For the first time that day, a faint, sad smile touched Maya's lips. Keep it safe, she said. Once the plane reached cruising altitude, the service began. Usually this was Tiffany's favorite part, the part where she held the power dispensing champagne and caviar like a queen to her subjects. Today, it was a torture chamber. Tiffany's hands shook as she laid the white linen tablecloth over Maya's tray table. She placed the silverware down with trembling precision. Would you like the sparkling water or the champagne, Ms. Winslow? Tiffany asked, her voice trembling. Maya didn't look up from the book she was reading. Water. No ice. Right away. Tiffany rushed to the galley and returned seconds later. She placed the glass down. Is there anything else I can get you? A warm towel? Another pillow? Tiffany hovered, desperate to be useful, desperate to be forgiven. Maya finally looked up. She took off her headphones. Tiffany, do you know why I'm on this flight? Tiffany blinked. I heard you mention a funeral. I am deeply sorry for your loss. It's not just a funeral, Maya said, her voice low enough that only Tiffany could hear, but loud enough to carry the weight of an anvil. My father was Reginald Winslow. He died at 4:00 a.m. this morning in London. I am flying there to sign the transfer of deed for the entire company. Tiffany went pale. I didn't know. Of course you didn't, Maya said. But here is the twist, Tiffany. My father was old school. He didn't believe in firing people. He believed in training. Tiffany nodded vigorously. Yes, exactly. I can be trained. I can do better. But, Maya continued, ignoring her, he also believed in something else. He believed that character is what you do when you think no one powerful is watching. Maya reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a small black notebook. She opened it. I wasn't just coming home, Maya said. 2 weeks ago, the board received complaints about the New York to London crew. Specific complaints about discrimination against younger passengers and those who didn't look the part. My father asked me to fly commercial this week. To check. Tiffany felt the floor drop out from under her. You were a secret shopper. Not officially, Maya said. I was just a daughter coming home to see her dying dad. But you made it a test, and Tiffany, you failed so hard, it's actually impressive. Please, Tiffany whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I have a mortgage. I have 2 kids in private school. Please don't fire me. Maya looked at her. It would have been easy to destroy her right there, to scream, to yell, to use her power. But Maya was tired, and she had bigger things to worry about than a mean flight attendant. I'm not going to fire you, Tiffany, Maya said. Tiffany let out a sob of relief. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Winslow. I promise I'm not going to fire you. Maya repeated, her voice turning icy. Because I don't have to. You see Mrs. Halloway over there in 1F? Tiffany looked over. Mrs. Halloway was pretending to be asleep, her eye mask pulled down tight. Mrs. Halloway's husband is Marcus Halloway, Maya said casually. He is the VP of Human Resources for Pan Atlantic. He works for me. And Mrs. Halloway just spent 20 minutes watching you harass the owner of the company. When this plane lands, who do you think she is going to call to save her own skin? Tiffany looked at Mrs. Halloway, then back to Maya. The realization hit her. Mrs. Halloway would throw Tiffany under the bus to ensure her husband didn't get blowback from the Winslow family. You're already gone, Tiffany, Maya said, turning back to her book. Now please bring me some napkins. You spilled water on my table. Tiffany walked back to the galley, her legs numb. She was trapped in a metal tube at 35,000 feet, serving the person who held her life in her hands, knowing that the moment the wheels touched the tarmac at Heathrow, her life as she knew it was over. But the karma wasn't done yet. An hour later, as Tiffany was clearing plates, turbulence hit. It wasn't bad turbulence, just a few bumps. But in her nervous state, Tiffany stumbled. She lost her grip on a tray of half-eaten beef Wellington and red wine. The tray flew, and the contents landed squarely in the lap of Mrs. Halloway. Mrs. Halloway screamed, jumping up. The red wine soaked instantly into her beige cashmere sweater and her white trousers. "You idiot! Look what you've done! This is Versace!" "I'm so sorry," Tiffany cried, grabbing napkins. "It was the turbulence! Get away from me!" Mrs. Halloway shrieked, pushing Tiffany's hands away. "You competent fool! I am going to have my husband fire you before we even deplane." Maya watched from seat 1A. She didn't smile. She didn't laugh. She just watched the two bullies turning on each other. The woman who had called her trash was now covered in garbage. The woman who had mocked her clothes was now ruining a $2,000 outfit. David, the tech guy, caught Maya's eye again. He gave a small thumbs up. Maya took a sip of her water. It tasted crisp. But the real twist was waiting for them on the ground, because what Tiffany and the passengers didn't know was that the turbulence hadn't been random. The pilot, Captain Anderson, had turned on the "fasten seatbelt" sign because he saw clear air ahead, but he also knew via the intercom exactly when Tiffany was walking past Mrs. Halloway with a full tray. A tiny intentional nudge of the rudder pedal was all it took. The captain was loyal to the Winslows, and he always protected his own. The descent into London Heathrow was smooth, but inside the cabin the atmosphere was jagged with tension. Tiffany had spent the last 3 hours hiding in the galley, only emerging to hurriedly collect trash, her eyes fixed on the floor. Mrs. Halloway sat in her wine-stained cashmere, fuming occasionally, muttering about lawsuits and incompetence. Maya, however, was calm. She had spent the flight looking at old photos of her father on her phone. She was ready. As the wheels touched the tarmac with a screech of rubber, Captain Anderson's voice came over the intercom. Usually this was a routine script about local time and temperature. Today it was different. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London. The local time is 8:15 p.m. We ask that you remain seated until we arrive at the gate. However, we have a special protocol for today's arrival. We ask that all passengers in the main cabin and first class remain seated to allow our VIP party to deplane first. Ground security will be boarding the aircraft to assist with this escort." A murmur went through the cabin. Security escorts. Tiffany went pale in her jump seat. "They're coming for me," she thought. The captain called ahead. Mrs. Halloway, however, smirked. She leaned over to her husband. "Finally. Marcus must have arranged a police escort for us because of that incident with the wine. He knows how to treat VIPs." The plane taxied to a halt at a private terminal gate, not the usual commercial bridge. Through the window, passengers could see a convoy of 3 black Range Rovers waiting on the tarmac, flanked by police motorcycles. Standing next to the lead vehicle was a tall man in a sharp suit, Marcus Halloway, the VP of Human Resources and Mrs. Halloway's husband. "Look." Mrs. Halloway pointed, beaming. "There's Marcus. Oh, thank goodness. He's going to fix this mess." The seatbelt sign pinged off. But before anyone could stand, the main cabin door opened. 2 large men in dark suits boarded, followed by a British police officer. Tiffany unbuckled her harness, her hands shaking so bad she could barely work the clasp. She stood up, smoothing her uniform, preparing to beg. The lead security officer walked past the galley. He walked past the Halloways. He stopped at seat 1A. "Ms. Winslow," the officer said, his voice respectful. "We are here to escort you. Your team is waiting." Maya stood up. She pulled her hoodie down, grabbed her battered backpack, and stepped into the aisle. Mrs. Halloway gasped. "Wait." "Officer, that's my husband down there. I'm Mrs. Halloway." "Why are you talking to her?" The officer ignored her. He gestured for Maya to proceed. Maya walked down the aisle. As she passed Tiffany, she stopped. Tiffany flinched, expecting a slap or a scream. "Grab your bag, Tiffany," Maya said quietly. "You're coming with us." "Me?" Tiffany squeaked. "Yes, and you too, Mrs. Halloway," Maya added, glancing at the woman in the wine-stained sweater. "My head of HR is waiting. I think we should all have a chat." "I am gladly coming," Mrs. Halloway huffed, grabbing her purse. "I can't wait to tell Marcus how you allowed this crew to assault me." The procession moved off the plane. Maya led the way, looking like a rock star in street clothes. Behind her stumbled a terrified flight attendant and a furious socialite. They walked down the stairs to the tarmac. The cool London air hit their faces. Marcus Halloway saw them coming. He straightened his tie and walked forward briskly. Mrs. Halloway ran ahead, arms open. "Marcus, darling. You won't believe the flight I've had." This trashy girl. Marcus Halloway walked right past his wife. He didn't even look at her. He walked straight to Maya. He bowed his head slightly, a gesture of profound deference. "Ms. Winslow," Marcus said, his voice serious. "I am deeply sorry for your loss. The car is ready to take you to the estate. The board is assembled." Mrs. Halloway froze. She turned around, watching her husband bowing to the girl in the hoodie. "Marcus, what are you doing? That's the girl who—" "Quiet, Janet." Marcus snapped his voice, whipping like a lash. He turned to face his wife, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and embarrassment. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Me," Janet Halloway stammered. "I did nothing. It was this incompetent waitress." She pointed at Tiffany. Marcus turned his gaze to Tiffany, who was shivering in the cool air. Then he looked at Maya. "Ms. Winslow, Captain Anderson sent me a preliminary report via ACARS data link while you were in the air. He detailed an incident of profiling harassment and attempted denial of boarding. Is this accurate?" Maya looked at the three of them. The wind blew her curls across her face. "It's accurate, Marcus." "Who was responsible?" Marcus asked, pulling a tablet from his jacket. Maya looked at Tiffany. Tiffany was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. She was thinking of her mortgage, her kids. "Tiffany was the instrument," Maya said. "She profiled me based on my clothes. She tried to humiliate me. She abused her power." "Then she is terminated immediately," Marcus said coldly. "Hand over your badge, Mrs. Baxter. You will not be flying back." Tiffany sobbed, unpinning her wings, the wings she had worked 10 years to earn. She handed them to Marcus with a shaking hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "But," Maya interrupted, her voice cutting through the tarmac noise. "Tiffany isn't the only problem, Marcus." Maya pointed a finger at Mrs. Halloway. "Your wife," Maya said, "encouraged the harassment. She called me trash. She pressured the crew to remove me because she didn't like the way I looked. She treated the staff like servants and me like a criminal." Marcus turned to his wife. His face was beet red. "Janet, tell me you didn't." Well, she looked like a thug, Marcus. You can't blame me for being concerned about safety." "She is the owner of the company that pays for your house, Janet," Marcus roared. The security guards looked away, embarrassed. "My job, my entire career hangs by a thread because you couldn't keep your mouth shut." "Marcus, Maya stepped forward. "Marcus, I'm not going to fire you for your wife's behavior. My father valued you. You're good at your job." Marcus let out a breath, his shoulders sagging. "Thank you, Miss Winslow. Thank you." "However," Maya continued, her voice hard as steel, "I am placing a lifetime ban on Mrs. Janet Halloway. She is no longer welcome on Pan-Atlantic Airways. Not in first class, not in coach, not in cargo. She can swim back to New York." Janet Halloway's jaw dropped. "You can't do that." "Marcus, tell her." Marcus looked at his wife. He looked at the furious, powerful young woman standing in front of him. He made a choice. "You heard her, Janet," Marcus said. "You're banned. You'll have to book a flight on Delta to get home. And don't put it on the company card." The convoy of Range Rovers cut through the rainy London night, a sleek line of black steel moving against the blur of streetlights. Inside the lead vehicle, the silence was absolute. Maya sat in the back seat, the soft hum of the tires on wet pavement, the only sound. She had removed her hood, letting her curls fall against the headrest. The adrenaline of the confrontation on the tarmac had evaporated, leaving behind a hollow, aching exhaustion. She looked out the tinted window, watching the familiar landmarks of West London pass by places she used to visit with her father. Marcus Halloway sat in the jump seat, facing her. The VP of Human Resources, usually a man of endless confidence and corporate swagger, looked like he was sitting on a bed of nails. He kept clasping and unclasping his hands, his eyes darting to Maya, and then quickly away. "Miss Winslow." Marcus finally broke the silence, his voice low. "Regarding the accommodations at the estate, the staff has been notified of your arrival. The house is prepared." "Thank you, Marcus," Maya said, her gaze still fixed on the rainy window. "And—" Marcus hesitated, swallowing hard. "Regarding my wife." Maya turned her head slowly to look at him. The interior lights of the car cast shadows across her face, making her look older than her 19 years. "Your wife is not the priority right now, Marcus," Maya said calmly. "My father is lying in a morgue. The company stock is likely fluctuating in after-hours trading, and I have a board meeting at 9:00 a.m. "Of course," Marcus whispered, suitably chastised. "I only meant to say, I am handling it. Personally." "Good," Maya said. She closed her eyes. "Because tomorrow we stop reacting. Tomorrow we start leading." The Winslow estate in Kensington was a museum of silence. Maya woke up in her old bedroom, the one that still had a poster of a rock band on the wall from her teenage years. For a split second, she forgot. She forgot she was the owner. She forgot her father was gone. Then her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Then it buzzed again. And again. Within 10 seconds, it was vibrating so violently it nearly fell off the table. Maya picked it up. She had 400 missed messages. She opened Twitter X. The #1 trending topic in the United Kingdom and the United States was hashtag boycott Pan-Atlantic. The #2 trending topic was hashtag the girl in the hoodie. David, the tech entrepreneur from Seat 2A, had not just uploaded the video, he had provided commentary. The video, titled "Airline Karen and Socialite Bully the Owner of the Airline," had exploded overnight. It currently sat at 24 million views. Maya clicked play. The video was shaky, but the audio was crystal clear. "You look like a security threat," Tiffany's voice screeched from the phone speaker. "Absolute trash," came Mrs. Halloway's voice. Then the climax, the captain's face dropping as he revealed Maya's identity. But it was the comments section, that was the true judge, jury, and executioner. At Flyguy 99. I've flown Pan-Atlantic for 10 years. If this is how they treat people based on clothes, I'm done. Cancelling my gold status. Call at justice served. That flight attendant needs to be in jail, not just fired. She tried to frame that girl for assault. That's a felony. Not all. At London Elite. Wait, isn't that Janet Halloway, the one who chairs the charity gala? Yikes. Imagine being that rich and that miserable. Maya set the phone down. She wasn't smiling. This wasn't just viral fame. This was a corporate crisis. If she didn't handle this perfectly, the board would use it as an excuse to declare her incompetent and install an interim CEO. They would say she was too controversial. She stood up and walked to the closet. She pushed aside her hoodies and jeans. She reached for the garment bag her father had bought her for her 18th birthday, a tailored black suit from Savile Row. She put it on. She tied her hair back. She looked in the mirror. The grieving daughter was gone. The chairman had arrived. The boardroom slaughter. The conference room at the Pan-Atlantic headquarters in Canary Wharf was a fortress of glass and steel overlooking the grey waters of the Thames. 12 men sat around the long mahogany table. The average age was 65. They wore grey suits, grave expressions, and the distinct air of men who thought they knew better. Mr. Sterling, the interim chairman of the board, checked his watch. "She's 5 minutes late," he muttered to the man next to him. "Typical. Reginald shouldn't have left the shares to a child. We need to prepare the press release for the transition of power." The transition to whom, Mr. Sterling? The doors swung open. Maya Winslow didn't walk in. She swept in. Her stride was long and purposeful. The heavy oak doors slammed shut behind her with a sound that made 3 board members jump. She didn't sit. She walked to the head of the table, placed her hands on the leather surface, and leaned forward. "Good morning, gentlemen," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried to the back of the room. "I trust you've all seen the morning news." "We have," Mr. Sterling said, clearing his throat. He didn't stand up. "It's a PR disaster, Maya. The stock is down 6% in pre-market trading. We've drafted a statement apologizing for the misunderstanding and announcing that we are bringing in a crisis management firm. We also think it's best if you take a leave of absence to mourn your father while we handle this." Maya picked up the draft press release lying on the table. She scanned it. Regret the incident. Isolated event. Commitment to service. She ripped the paper in half. Then she ripped it again. She dropped the confetti onto the mahogany table. "There will be no leave of absence," Maya said, her eyes locking onto Sterling's. "And this was not an isolated event. This was a symptom of a rot that has been festering in this company for years. A culture of elitism that you she gestured to the room, have allowed to flourish because it catered to your friends. Now see here." Sterling stood up, his face reddening. "You are 19 years old. You have 0 operational experience. You cannot lecture this board." "I am the majority shareholder," Maya shot back, her voice turning to ice. "And I have something you don't have. I have the public on my side." She pressed a button on the remote in her hand. The massive screen behind her lit up. It showed a graph of the social media sentiment. It was overwhelmingly in support of Maya. "The world isn't angry that the owner was treated badly," Maya continued. "The world is angry because they know that if I wasn't the owner, I would have been dragged off that plane in handcuffs." That flight attendant, Tiffany Baxter, felt comfortable lying to a federal pilot because she thought the system would protect her. Why? Because the culture you built protects bullies. The room went silent. Sterling slowly sat back down. "Here is the new reality," Maya said, sliding a folder across the table. Item 1. Tiffany Baxter is terminated for cause effective immediately. Legal will file charges for filing a false report regarding the assault claim. We are not protecting her. Item 2, she continued. Mrs. Janet Halloway is banned for life. I have instructed legal to draft a cease and desist letter regarding her defamation of our brand. If she speaks to the press, we sue her for the loss in stock value. Marcus won't like that, a board member whispered. Marcus is currently rewriting the entire HR training manual, Maya said. He knows that is the price of keeping his job. And item 3. Maya looked around the room. We are launching the Winslow Protocol. Any passenger, regardless of ticket class, who reports discrimination will have their case reviewed by an independent oversight committee, not internal HR. If we are truly a luxury airline, then the ultimate luxury is dignity for everyone. Maya paused. She looked at the empty chair at the other end of the table, her father's chair. My father built this airline to connect people, not to separate them into castes, she said, her voice softening just a fraction. We are going back to basics. Anyone who disagrees can tender their resignation to my secretary by noon. I will buy your shares at market value. She stood straight. Meeting adjourned. While Maya was securing her empire, the world was collapsing for Tiffany Baxter and Janet Halloway. For Janet Halloway, the punishment was social death, which in her circle was worse than prison. She sat in her penthouse living room, nursing a vodka tonic at 10:00 a.m. Her phone had been ringing non-stop, but not with support. It was the Charity Gala Committee. They had emailed her asking her to step down as chairwoman, citing alignment issues with our values. The door opened, and Marcus walked in. He looked 10 years older than he had yesterday. He was carrying a box. Marcus. Janet stood up. Did you fix it? Did you get that girl to issue an apology? Marcus laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. He dropped the box on the floor. It was his personal effects from his executive office. I didn't get an apology, Janet. I got a lifeline. I barely kept my job. I've been demoted to strictly operational HR. No bonuses. No stock options for 3 years. Demoted, Janet shrieked. Because of that brat! Because of you! Marcus shouted, finally snapping. The sound echoed off the marble walls. Because you couldn't just drink your wine and shut up. You insulted the owner of the company. Do you understand that we are pariahs? I walked into the club this morning, and 3 people turned their backs on me. But the flight ban, Janet stammered. We have the villa in Tuscany next month. We have to fly pan-Atlantic. It's the only direct route. You're not flying pan-Atlantic, Marcus said, loosening his tie. You're banned, Janet, for life. If you want to go to Tuscany, you can take a connection through Frankfurt on Lufthansa, in economy. Because thanks to the stock dip you caused, our liquidity is frozen. Janet sank onto the sofa, the realization finally hitting her. She wasn't just banned from a plane. She was banned from her life. For Tiffany Baxter, the reality was far grimmer. She sat in a small grey office at the airport, across from a junior HR representative. She wasn't wearing her uniform anymore. She was wearing a tracksuit, her face blotchy from crying. We have reviewed the footage, the HR rep said, not making eye contact. The termination is for gross misconduct, falsifying a safety report, and violation of the passenger dignity clause, effective immediately. Please, Tiffany begged, wringing her hands. I have 15 years of service. I was the lead. Doesn't that count for anything? It counts against you, the rep said coldly. You should have known better. I can't lose this job. My pension. You lost your pension when you tried to have a passenger arrested for holding a cell phone, Ms. Baxter. The rep slid a paper across the desk. This is a notice of ineligibility. It means Pan Atlantic will not provide a reference for you. Furthermore, because the FAA has been notified of the false assault claim, your security clearance is under review. Tiffany walked out of the office into the terminal. She felt like everyone was looking at her. She felt naked without her wings, without the uniform that gave her power. She checked her phone. Her LinkedIn inbox was flooded with hate mail. A recruiter she had messaged earlier that morning had replied with a single link, the YouTube video of her screaming at Maya. She was unhireable. The sky was closed to her. 3 months later. Full circle. The autumn sun streamed through the glass walls of JFK Terminal 4. The mood in the terminal had changed. There were new posters up on the walls of the Pan Atlantic check-in area. They featured a diverse group of passengers, young, old, casual, formal, under the slogan, "The spirit of travel belongs to everyone." Maya Winslow walked through the terminal. She was headed back to London for the quarterly earnings call. The stock had not only recovered, it was up 15%. The rebranding had worked. The People's Airline was a hit. Maya was wearing a simple cashmere sweater and jeans. She stopped at the Hudson newsstand to buy a bottle of water. She paid with cash, smiling at the cashier. As she walked toward the first-class lounge, she saw a commotion near the bathrooms. A janitorial cart had overturned, spilling industrial cleaner across the floor. A woman in a grey jumpsuit, wearing heavy rubber gloves, was frantically mopping it up. A supervisor was standing over her, barking orders. "Faster, Baxter, we have a flight crew coming through here in 2 minutes. Clean this mess up." "I'm trying, sir," the woman said, her voice cracking. She scrubbed harder. Sweat matting her blonde hair to her forehead. Her nails, once manicured to perfection, were short and chipped. Maya stopped. It was Tiffany. The mighty lead flight attendant, who had once sneered at sneakers and hoodies, was now scrubbing the floor of the very terminal she used to rule. She had found the only job at the airport that didn't require a security clearance janitorial services for a third-party contractor. Tiffany looked up as the shadow fell over her. She saw the sneakers first, then the jeans. Then she looked up into the face of Maya Winslow. Tiffany froze. Her face went crimson. She gripped the mop handle like it was a lifeline. She waited for the mockery. She waited for Maya to laugh, to take a picture, to tell the supervisor to fire her again. But Maya didn't laugh. She looked at Tiffany with a mixture of pity and resolve. She saw a woman who had been broken down to her constituent parts and forced to rebuild from the ground up. "You missed a spot," Maya said softly. Tiffany flinched. She looked down. "Over there." Maya pointed to a dry patch near the wall. "If you're going to do a job, Tiffany, do it right, no matter who is watching." Tiffany looked up, tears welling in her eyes. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was an acknowledgement. "Yes. Yes, Miss Winslow." Maya nodded once. She turned and walked away, heading toward the lounge. She didn't look back. She had a plane to catch, a company to run, and a legacy to build. The past was mopping the floor behind her. The future was waiting at gate C4. She scanned her pass at the gate. The machine beeped a cheerful green. Passenger Winslow Maya. Status owner. She smiled, walked down the jet bridge, and took her seat in 1A. She kicked off her sneakers, put on her headphones, and as the engines roared to life, she finally truly felt at home. And that is the story of how a judgmental flight attendant and a snobby socialite learned the hardest lesson of all. You never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book owns the library. Maya Winslow didn't just inherit an airline that day. She inherited her father's integrity. She proved that true power isn't about wearing a suit or yelling at people. It's about staying calm when the world tries to make you small. Justice was served cold at 30,000 feet. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been judged by how you were dressed? I want to hear your story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.